Hi YouTube family. So this is going to be our first official video where I will be showing you the different ways in which you can reverse the string. So before we really jump into the tutorial part, I want to show you the development environment which I will be using throughout my videos, and also which basically JDK version you need to get installed in your machine. Okay, so this is the development environment which I am using right now is IntelliJ, and the version is 2022. So maybe you can refer to this screen and you can get the same version installed on your machine. And regarding Java, you can include, you can basically install any version, maybe prior to the Java 8 as well. But I would suggest and I would recommend to use Java 8, because in the upcoming videos I will be showing you Java 8 functionalities as well. Basically we will have a tutorial on Java 8 functionalities as well. So yeah, it's up to you which version and which basically environment you install. But if you follow my videos, I would suggest you to install IntelliJ and Java 8. Yeah, so without wasting any further time, let's just jump into the tutorial and let's get started. So as I mentioned earlier, I will be showing you the 4 ways in which you can reverse the string. So here it is. I will first get the class ready. I will name it as string reverse function. Now to get started with your Java program, so basically it's like, you write your code and then you execute, right? You compile your code and then you execute it. So you need to make sure that you have the main method in your class, because the significance of main method is that your JDK picks up the main method and starts executing it. So basically it is the entry point of any Java program. And basically whenever, if you don't have this main method, your GDK won't pick up the class which needs to get executed. It won't allow you to execute that particular class. Okay, so prior to Java 8 version, Java 7 version, it was fine if you do not have main method. So there is an alternative where you can still execute your code without having main method. So I will show you that as well. But first, just let's see how basically the JDK picks up this particular main method and starts executing it. Okay, so let's start. Let's just welcome to. Yeah, and if you see here in the configuration, you already have see this current file and you see this execution of this particular file, right? So when I execute it, so this interpreter basically understands that, finds the main method in the class and starts executing it. So if you see in the console, you get the expected result. Welcome to Sonali's YouTube channel, which we have passed here. Now, as I said, if you don't have the main method, let's say I give some another name, right? So if you see this, you just cannot execute this particular file. You just cannot have the its execution, because what is the problem is you do not have the main method specified. So that is the importance of the main method, that it is the entry point for any Java program for its execution. And as I mentioned, if you would have a question that, is it possible to execute a program without a main method? Right, it is possible. So if you are aware, if you see the main method as well, so this is particular, the return type is static. So what happens is interpreter picks up the static blocks first and then the static methods. So even though you do not have the main method, you can just have the static block and you can just execute your code. So if you see, as I have installed Java 8, you cannot, just keep writing the main method. But prior to Java 7, you can just have the static block, because when I will show you the execution of this particular file, firstly, this particular static block will get execute and then your main method will get execute. So let's just see what, in which order the output seems to come. So if you see, it first picks up the static block for the execution. So ideally before Java 7, you can just keep writing the main method and you can just use the static block for your program. But from Java 7 onwards, you have to write your main method. I mean, there's no any basically option for this particular thing. Yeah, so now let's just get started. I mean, basically what we are supposed to have it in this particular video, that is reverse of a string, how we can basically reverse the string. So let's have the input string. Let's pick the value as maybe step, and we will go with the first method as, I mean, using the string builder. So before that, let's have the variable for output string as well. So I will first show how to reverse a string using string builder. Okay. So to have the functionality of a string builder, we will have string builder. So rather than writing the, I mean, basic the functions in the same main method, you can have a one more class. You can just have one more class where I name it as reverse functions. And within the class, I will be having all the four methods, I mean all the four ways. So let's start with the first one. Now here I will give the output as string because you need that particular reversed string, the output string as your output, right? So I will, the return type I will choose a string type and reverse using string builder is the function name. Here the input will be input string, the string which you need to get the reverse of. Yeah, so using string builder, you can have the string builder in Java lang package. Yeah, and within the output string you will have builder dot reverse. So this is the inbuilt function in the string builder, and you need to do the toString. Now and then your return object will be your output string. Okay, let's consider the input string comes as null or empty, right? And you just don't want the code to run as expected and you want to throw some exception. So in that case, maybe you can have one more function called check null or is empty. So you will be having this check on the input string, right? Here first you will check if the input string is null. You just want to throw exception, legal argument exception saying null as input string is invalid. Okay, and if the input string is empty, input string cannot be empty. Yeah, so now before going forward into your code, you just need to add this particular check. I mean, you need to call this particular check null or is empty method, where your string will be checked if it is null or if it is empty. In case if it is null or empty, it would stop, it won't go to the further lines of code, it will just throw the exception over here. In case if it is null, it will throw this exception, and in case if it is empty, it will show that input string cannot be empty. Then after that, in case if both the conditions does not satisfy, it will just go to the next line of the code, that is string builder. It will get the string builder ready, and within the builder you have the method, inbuilt method, which is reverse, which reverse the string. So yeah, I mean, let's just compile and check if this particular method works in reversal of string. So here was our first method, I mean first way. So let's just see what is the output. So here output string is equal to, before that, I mean, you need to call the method from the different class, right? So you would be creating an object for that particular class. This is how you create the object for that class, and using the object you will be calling the method, and you will be passing the input string. And let's just print it out on the console. String after reversal is your output string, and maybe we can just have the input string printed as well to the console. String before reversal is input string. Yeah, so let's just compile and execute the code. Yeah, so if you see the input string which we passed is step, if you see the input string is step, and after reversal, this is what the string output is. It is pets. Okay, so this was the first way in which you can reverse your string using a string builder. Now the second way is you can use the StringBuffer class. So I have just copied it. I'll just change the name, StringBuffer, and you don't have to create the object again and again. What you need to do is you need to have the same kind of method, just you need to change it to StringBuffer. So I will be doing this changes, and the same using StringBuffer as well. You would like to check null or empty check, so I have just called the method. Now here, rather than using string builder, I will be using StringBuffer. So this is how I will be creating the object of StringBuffer. And in similar pattern, the StringBuffer also have the inbuilt method reverse, where you get the reverse of the input string. So yeah, this is the reverse using StringBuffer. Now let's just call. So I copied the above lines, so now I just need to call StringBuffer and give it as using StringBuffer. Okay, and here let's give the message as string builder. So yeah, let's execute this. Yes, so if you see, using string builder and then using StringBuffer. Now the third way is, I mean, using to char method. Okay, the third way is using the charAt method. So let's create a function for third way. So I will just copy the same method once again, and I will rename it using charAt. So again I will check null or is empty check, and without using this buffer, I will first to get that charAt. So basically this charAt method, the name itself says that you need to pick the particular character at a specific index and show it in the output. So for that, you to get that particular index, right, you would be needing length. So you will first check the string, its length. So I got the length here. Then I will run the for loop where the size will be length minus 1. And I will be greater than or equal to 0. And as if you see the length, so let's consider the length of step, right? So if you see our input string, the length is 4, right? So what it will do is it will start from 3. As you want to the reverse, so you will start the for loop from the third index till your 0th index, and every time as you are starting from backwards, you will be having it as I minus minus. Okay, so within the for loop, you will be having output string is equal to output string plus input string dot charAt your index. So the index will be I. Yeah, and so let's consider that your input string was step. So here the size is 4. So let's see length will be your 4, and 4 minus 1 is 3. So whenever you go to the for loop, inside the for loop, here the input string charAt, it will be 3. So it is like 0, 1, 2 and 3. Now in the for loop, in Java, the for loop, the index starts from 0, and that is why we did length minus 1. Okay, so hope you understood why we have started it from length minus 1, because in Java the index starts from 0. Yeah, so I think this is the output string which we will get, I mean the reversal. So let's say in the first iteration your output string is empty, but then input string dot charAt of charAt 3, right? So what 3 will give is p, and that is how it will get the for loop done, and it will return your output string. So let's just, I mean, see what is the output using charAt method. So the output string is, I'm calling the function reverse using charAt, and I will pass the input string. Okay, so I will run the file. Oops, so I did not add the message which I need to show the console. I'll just start it. So the message which I want to show is using charAt method. Yeah, so if you see, for charAt method also we got the same reverse string which we got for the previous two results. Now I want you to see the null check and empty check as well, right? So let's just first, I mean, pass the string as null. So when I run the null string, as said that in every functionality we have passed this particular method, check null or is empty, right? So in that case, it won't go to the line number 13 execution. It will just return the output from here. It will throw an exception saying null as input string is invalid. So let's just see. So if you see, the string is null, and our expected output should be that null is invalid. Okay. Yes, so if you see string before reversal, it was null, and that is why we got the exception saying null as input string is invalid. Similarly, it goes for the empty check as well. So let's just run for the empty check. Yeah, so if you see, it says input string cannot be empty. Yeah. So now we will see the last way, that is in the recursive way how we can get the reverse of the string. So let's have the name reverse using recursion. The parameter will be input string, the string where we need to perform the reverse. Have the output variable where you will get the final reversed output. Yeah. Now in the recursion, so what recursion means? Okay, so recursion is like basically you keep looping up the same method. I mean, you call the same method the number of times you want to until your specific condition is not satisfied. Okay, so here let's say we had the string called step, right? So what happens is, let me just explain you. So in this case, let's say I use the same charAt method and I got the p. So what I will do, in the output string I will add that particular p, and then again I will call the same recursive method for the remaining three characters, right? So that means you keep on calling the same method until you are reached to this particular point, until your s is, I mean basically your s is carried out. Okay, so in that case, where I need to stop calling my recursive method is when my input string length is 0. Okay, so if input string dot length is equal to 0, I just need to return output string. Okay, so and how you will be having the final output is output string is equal to, as I said, you will be having the, okay, so rather than writing the code in the same method, let's have reverse method with input string. So I will just, rather than adding it over here, because I want it in the recursive fashion. Okay, so here what we did is, I will just get this out. Yeah, and whenever your length, I mean your complete input string is read, you will just return the empty string. Otherwise, you will always return the last character in that particular remaining string and the normal string. Okay, so here you will return it as, yeah. So coming to the recursion part, so similar way, I will be having output string, and first I will check if it is, the input string is not null or empty. If that particular check is passed, I will just call the reverse method. So I will be adding a new reverse method because this particular method will be called in recursion. The return type will be string because we need an output string. So if this particular input string dot length is 0, that means you have reached to the first character I mean you have read the first character and your input string is completed scanning, right? So in that case you don't have to show anything, right? So you will just return this. Or else you, in another scenario where your characters are yet to be read, in that case you will always start it from last, right? So you will be having input string dot charAt input string dot length -1, and I mean you have to keep reading the string, right? I mean if you see, this particular will return you just one character, but you want to join another characters as well. So you will again call this reverse method, and this time you will have the, I mean the basically index from where your input string will be read is input string dot substring from 0 to input string dot length -1. Now why I have done is length -1 is basically because the last character you have already added over here, right? I mean you have got the last letter of your string. So you just need to traverse the string from first letter of your string to the last -1. That is why I have performed the length -1. Yeah, so I will just add a note here in case recursion is done in a way where you start from the end of string and traverse through each character till input string length is empty. Okay, so hope you understood that what we are doing here is we are picking every time the last character of the input string, and then again we are calling the same method, and this time it will be like from your from your 0th index to the index which you have lastly traversed, -1 from that. Yeah, so here the output string will be called the reverse string and just pass the input string. So this will recursively call the reverse this function inside this particular function, and you will get the, yeah. So I have just called the output string and I will return output string. So let's call this below function again, the recursive function. I will just copy the last way. Yeah, and here I will call reverse using recursion. Okay, so just execute it and you will get the output, the final output. You will see all the 4 ways. Oh, okay, so we haven't changed back it to, let's get to our original string value, that is 10. Yeah. Yeah, so if you see with the recursion as well, you will get the same reversed string which you have got for other outputs. Yeah, so that is it for this particular video. Maybe in the comment section you can write down your queries or any doubts if you have regarding this particular video, and maybe even you can suggest what tutorials you want. Before planning my other tutorials, maybe I can take that if it can be pipelined in between somewhere.